Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook podcast at offthehooksports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now.
Off and running on a Tuesday, I think it is. It's been a blur for those that have checked out offthehooksports.com. I certainly do appreciate it. Go to YouTube for the latest videos. You can get a sneak peek at videos that are going to drop there, and then they will be on our site, offthehooksports.com. So big show on tap. We're going to talk to Sean Devaney. Sean will join us. He's with Heavy.com, longtime NBA writer. I want to talk about what happened last night with the Celtics, who really is a surprising loss. A lot of recruiting news, also a breakdown of some of the top transfers that Tennessee has received, and we're going to talk some Cruton here in a little bit. But let me start with the game last night, Ethan. I mean, that's a game where Steph Curry's kind of cold, and don't you have to win that game if you're the Celtics? That was a little befuddling to me.
For the Celtics, it certainly seems like it. Now, obviously, you're going back to Boston, and you can even the series, and then you just never know what happens in Game 7. I think the story of last night was Andrew Wiggins. And that trade seemed to work out pretty well for the Warriors, obviously with 26 points, and he was just pretty much dominant. And he seemed to come out of nowhere, kind of. I don't remember him being this dominant regular season, but he has really shown up in the playoffs. And you got to tip your hat to the Warriors for that. You got to tip your hat just to them for having the depth to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I am a Celtics fan, but if we get to the point where Steph Curry wins with another set of guys, we're going to be talking about him suddenly within the top 10 players of all time. I wouldn't have him there right now, but we're getting pretty darn close. So Grant Williams had kind of a crazy, weird, sort of awkward fall, but he's okay. Continues to give that team a lift through the playoffs. But really, I thought, as you pointed out, Ethan, it just clearly it's not a matchup game for him. He did get early minutes because of some foul trouble, but I don't think that's the direction they ultimately want to go.
It's also like a real problem that the Warriors really struggled from the three-point line and won pretty handily at the same time. I think, am I right in saying that Curry and Wiggins combined to go for like 0 for 15 or something like that? Like Klay was the only one hitting it for the Warriors. And for that to, be the reality of how the game was and the Warriors still winning by 10, that is not a good thing for the Celtics, regardless of if it was in San Francisco or otherwise.
Nope, it is not. I want to start today, though, before we get to the recruiting news, with On3 had a breaking report. So that came late last night. We remember Nick Saban basically calling out Texas A&M. That's what they did, and I don't think he ever used Texas A&M by name, but that's exactly what Nick Saban did. And it turns out that Texas A&M, man, I thought that Jimbo Fisher was upset over this thing, but apparently everybody in the athletic department was, because they actually reached out to the SEC and tried to get Nick Saban suspended and or fined. Well, that wasn't going to happen. I mean, come on, what are you going to do? Sit him for the first game? I mean, Alabama plays who, Amanda, in the first game? I'll be honest, I don't have it in front of me, but Amanda is an Alabama fan. Who do they play?
I'm an Alabama fan, and I don't even remember right now.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not going to lie.
All right.
Well, I want to say it's Miami. But let me look.
It's weird because that is also what I was thinking. So
Utah State and Miami are oftentimes
Utah State. It's Utah State, September 3rd.
Yeah. We play Utah State?
Yeah. And, I think Utah State and Miami are confused for each other all the time. They're very similar schools.
We played Miami like
opposite.
last year, so
I know that was the Jamison Williams is the superstar game. I was like,
That was
So I got
also that
hurt.
everyone thought Miami was going to be really good at football again game. They were not.
well, I think
mean,
didn't they hang for a half, Amanda?
it's 44-13, so I don't think so. But
Yeah, it was.
I
It was
mean,
I thought it was like 20-13 and a half. When I say hanging, I'm talking
maybe.
relatively speaking. Whenever you talk about Alabama, everything's relative. I mean, because
Tennessee hung around with them for 3 quarters.
Yeah,
So exactly.
say that, but still.
Wow, good job. Yay, UT.
No, it's a
But-
good thing for any school, I'd say.
Yes, but I mean, Miami. Yeah, I don't think it's just Miami. I think it's really, you'll see it throughout the year. Whenever we play our first opening game, we normally take care of business, and it's pretty rough. So Miami was one, Florida State. They were ranked 3rd in the nation when we played them, and we took out their quarterback and ruined their season. Virginia Tech is the same way. It is brutal, you know. We even, and sorry, honey, we even did that to Wisconsin. So I'm sorry. My husband's a big Wisconsin fan. He went to UM. But
he went to UM and he's a big Wisconsin fan?
Whatever. University of Wisconsin, Madison. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought she just transposed her M into a W, just flipped it over.
No, it was Madison. But yeah. So we just
here's what Ross Bjork had to say. He's the Texas A&M athletic director, and wow, it was part of the let's say the staff. So I was really befuddled by the idea of trying to get them suspended. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. You're not going to suspend Nick Saban in any shape, form, or fashion. So here's exactly what it said. We write to express Texas A&M University's disappointment and outrage at the recent statements made by Alabama University head football coach Nick Saban that A&M bought every player on their team, made a deal for name, image, likeness. Coach Saban's statement was a blatant violation of SEC bylaws regarding sportsmanship. More significantly, without citing any facts to support his statement, Coach Saban is accusing every single player in Texas A&M's recruiting class and current football team of violating NCAA NIL guidelines and Texas state law. Coach Saban's statement is false, beneath the dignity of the SEC, and corrosive to the fabric of sportsmanship in college football as a whole, and especially within the SEC. I totally disagree. I thought what Nick Saban did I thought it was twofold. It was, let's get some sort of legislation in here. And I think he was kind of poking at the Alabama boosters to say, hey, just because everything's going well doesn't mean you shouldn't provide opportunities for potential prospects unless that legislation changes. So, but the latter point is self-serving. But the big picture point that he made in the beginning was basically there needs to be some legislation. And he's right. I can't argue with that. I mean, NIL was supposed to help athletes that have come on campus, proven themselves. Like we work with Jacob Warren, and we work with Cooper Mays. That was the idea of NIL, guys. It was not to help recruiting. Now, ultimately, that's always going to be there. It was under the table before. But Amanda, I really don't have a problem with anything Nick Saban said. There's not going to be a suspension. If they want to throw out $100,000 fine, which is like me fining someone, you two at like $10. If they want to do that, go for it. What does it matter? The university's going to pay it. And they might make that statement. But Amanda, I look at what he said, and I think he's exactly right. I mean, everything's gone pretty haywire with the NIL because the NCAA chooses to basically do nothing.
Yeah, the NCAA tends to do nothing until someone forces their hand in anything. So if you remember, I think we talked about it a few days ago, the 10-second rule that, could be attributed to Saban could not be. He brought that to attention. He brought to attention other things like having former players on the sidelines, coaching or what have you, and they made a headset rule to where you could have as many people as you wanted to, but you could only have a certain number of headsets. So he does this thing to really push the NCAA to do something. I mean, he's been doing this since he got there. With Texas A&M, I mean, my God, it's like being an older sibling and having your younger sibling hit you, and then you hit them back, and then they run and tell your parents. Meanwhile, they're all just like, ha, 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 I'm going to get you in trouble, even though I'm the one in the wrong. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. You're protesting too much. You're probably doing exactly what he's saying, and if you weren't, you wouldn't be this mad about it.
20 years ago, when the NCAA had teeth, we would have already heard of a fine. I'm sure, because if the processes were, you would reach out to the SEC and you would make them aware, but it was very covert. And yes, he did. And I've read through some of those emails with the whole Alabama, Memphis, Logan Young thing. And let's just say he accused some of their boosters of different sexuality, which is fine for those people, but I don't know how that pertains to recruiting. We're in a different age now, but I mean, it was a full-on blast when I read through those documents that were public record. I mean, it's like, I don't know where to start talking about this. It was profanity laced in the whole 9 yards. So that's how you're supposed to handle it. It wasn't a classy email by any sense, but that's how you're supposed to handle it. You're supposed to go to the NCAA. You're not supposed to let a bunch of reporters gather around and just spout stuff out. But Amanda, the bottom line is, I don't remember him ever saying the words Texas A&M.
I don't recall him saying Texas A&M, but I think we all know who he was implying, who he was saying. But I feel like Texas A&M just literally, they're going nuts here. And it's, if we had the NCAA of 20 years ago, there would already be investigations into this thing just because someone said something, and it's not something that Texas A&M can definitively say, no, we haven't done this. Like, you don't know what your boosters are doing all the time at a university. Like, you don't know. So there's no proof to either support, or there's no proof to deny it either. So
I want to offer something up before we get to some of those recruiting notes. I think this is the first time Nick Saban's been behind the curve on something. I'm gonna be honest with you. And here's my theory, Amanda, and I'll throw this at you. I think that he thought the NIL would be cool for current players. I remember at SEC Media Days 2 years ago, he talked about, or was that last year? They all run together. But he talked about Bryce Young. That was last year. So he talked about Bryce Young was going to be a $1 million player in college. And I think that was cool, and he threw that out there. Bryce had done his work to become the starter, and he was fantastic, and he deserved $1 million, in my opinion, as far as market worth. I don't think Nick Saban thought that this was going to be so pervasive in NIL. And I've got a source really close to A&M, and those people have not a lot of money, but like an incredible amount of oil money. So it wouldn't take but a phone call from Jimbo Fisher to say, this guy, 5-star kid's pretty good. You might want to give him a call. I think he'd be a good endorser. And I believe those conversations happen at Tennessee or anywhere else. I do believe that.
Down. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think this is the first time, other than I thought there were times in probably the late 2000s, I thought he got conservative in the second half at times. Those are really the only 2 times I could point to where I think Nick Saban was off base. And I think he's the best coach of all time. I'm not knocking him. Nobody's perfect. But right. I think he was a little behind the NIL curve when it comes to recruiting.
I mean, I think that he thought, like we all thought, it was going to be something completely different than it is. The NIL is supposed to be for, players to, when they got to a certain university, for them to make money at that university. It wasn't intended, or at least I don't feel like it was intended to help recruiting as far as that goes. I mean, I felt like it was intended. So when you get to the university that you're going to, then you can make money while you're there. I don't think that anybody, well, I guess they did foresee it, but I wouldn't have thought that you would use that as a recruiting tool unless saying, hey, we don't have a starting QB. You could be this person and you could make tons of money.
You know what's crazy about this whole NIL thing and the transfers? And we're going to go later in the show through Tennessee's transfers and kind of rank them, how much they can help Tennessee. This is only a year old. This is like glacial, huge, monstrous change. And this just happened last year.
I know, and Saban's right to call it out. He's right to call it out. There's no rule to this. If there are rules, they're not being followed. I mean, there's very few. The NCAA just said, you know what, this is a good idea. Let's do it. What are the rules? What are the stipulations? What are the boundaries? Saban's right to call that out. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, let me pose a question. Do you think since it's only been here a year, do you think it's gonna get better or worse? Like, do you think it's gonna get fixed, or is it just gonna be abused more?
That's on the NCAA.
Well, what NCAA? That's like telling me. Yeah. I mean, I have a fast car. Not to be Tracy, who was a singer back in the day. I got a fast car. You don't remember that song? Anyway, I have a fat Tracy Morgan. No, that's a comedian. But I have a fast car, and if somebody told me that there were no police monitoring the drive between Chattanooga and Knoxville, I could be at your house, Amanda, in approximately 38 minutes. And I mean, I could. If somebody told. So what are you supposed to do? I mean, that is ultimately what the lack of the NCAA has turned this into, Ethan.
It's like something I related to is similar to your analogy. It's like one police officer trying to stop a soccer riot. It's just not happening. It's just not going to happen. And you got to send more police officers at some point,
I mean, that's exactly right.
Yeah. I'm not sure what I'm not sure what they'll do. I mean, I feel like something has to change before it just completely goes out of control, because this has been at the forefront of national news, national conversation for a while now. Nick Saban, saying what he said about Texas A&M, which, by the way, I do think he did mention Texas A&M. I think that's what caused the whole stir in the first place. If I remember correctly, he said A&M, but I could be wrong. So I'm not going to say. We'll throw a retroactive allegedly on that, but I'm pretty sure he said Texas A&M.
I don't know if he said it or he just alluded to, and you couldn't get away from who it was.
I thought he did. That's what was so shocking about it. It's like, Nick, buddy, like, what are we doing here? Because like Eric Musselman, Nate Oates, I get them confused. Nate Oates was there, and he was like uncomfortable. He was like, hey, I'm gonna separate myself from this dialogue here. But that's, if I remember, that's what made it so uncomfortable. So.
Yeah, well, it's been uncomfortable between the two, and they coach together, and then Fisher comes out and says, he's such a bad person to work for. No kidding, that guy doesn't sound like any fun to work for at all. But I talked to Lane Kiffin, and I said, "What do you do after winning the national championship?" He said, "You get up at 7:30 and you start recruiting the next day." I'm like, "Sweet goodness, that sounds horrible." I mean, there's a reason he has so much churn, because he works so incredibly hard. I want to remind you that Craft Treats is great for your dog. Your dog could use the CBD treats that will take care of situational anxiety, that will, no question about it, help your dog with the anti-inflammatory properties. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I love this for my dog when we have a storm. First thing I go to. So you need to go to crafttreats.com. That's crafttreats.com. Back in 2 minutes, and we'll either be talking with Sean Devaney, or we're going to talk about the top transfers that Tennessee has in line. So more after this. Says it's a production of Off the Hook Sports.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
So we're back, and we're going to be joined by Sean Devaney, joins us now of Heavy.com. And Sean and I go back. Sean was the very first guest that I ever scheduled in radio. I'm not going to remind anybody of the year, Sean, because that's embarrassing.
It's like 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, I think it was last Thursday.
Yeah.
So the game last night, but first I want to get your thoughts on what you're doing at Heavy.com, because Sean knows the NBA with the best of them, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, we're we've got sort of a team of writers, so we kind of cover the news of the day, and then we've got sort of myself and Steve Bulpett, who was columnist at the Boston Herald, and he's joined us as well. So we're doing sort of a more general NBA look as well from the two of us, as well as the team of writers that we have. So, a lot going on. We're going to be starting up a podcast, lo and behold, like everyone in America. But,
me?
Yeah, exactly. So it's some exciting stuff happening.
I'm going to start with Grant Williams, and just your thoughts on him, a former Vol, and we'll get to the game, but I wanted your take on him, because just take me through the timeline, because I did not think that he would be such an integral part of a potential world champion, but that guy has maximized some ability. Just your general thoughts on him.
Yeah, watching him last year, it really seemed like he was a guy who was going to be in the NBA for a while, but probably as an 8th or 9th man, not as somebody who was going to be, like you say, an integral contributor. The changes in him from last year to this year, it's really remarkable. He's become much more confident, and he's already a pretty confident guy, but I think he's been able to transfer that onto the floor. Defensively, he's just become such a menace. For a guy who doesn't have great foot speed, he's very smart. knows where to be, a step ahead of where the offensive player is going to get very good instincts. And obviously he's got sort of that fire plug body, and he's able to use that, to really be physical and knock guys around, create some space for himself, even though he's not particularly tall. He's a little bit like a Draymond Green. I know Draymond hasn't been fond of that comparison now that they're going up against each other, but you can't compare him to I think to Draymond Green. Obviously, they're different in some important ways, but generally speaking, they're fairly close.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I was just going to bring that up, and I hadn't heard it discussed anywhere else. He's kind of like a poor man's Draymond Green. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, I don't think he's as dominant as Draymond is defensively, but I think he's better offensively. I think he's, Draymond's a very good passer. I think Grant has that ability. We haven't necessarily seen it, but they don't run stuff through him the way the Warriors run stuff. You're going to rack up a lot more assists when the ball's going through you, as the Warriors have done in the past with Draymond Green. And Draymond just, obviously a defensive player of the year. I don't think Grant is at that level, but very, very imposing defensively. He can go out, and that's the thing that surprises me at his size. And like I said, not the quickest guy, but he can go out and guard anybody on the perimeter. They're very comfortable switching him under point guards, or to have him, guard even centers. So they're comfortable with that. That's a comparison to Draymond Green. And the thing that Draymond was able to do when he was at his best was to knock down 3-pointers when it was left open. And Grant is very, very good at that. You leave him alone, especially in that corner, he's going to make you pay. So there's definitely a comparison there.
Yeah, and Draymond doesn't like it at all. I mean,
no.
And he's not. I mean, and Grant's not as good. But I with Grant, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, of heavy.com. Check out that website. But correct me if I'm wrong. He is tied to the Celtics for another year. Do you think, not this year, but this upcoming 2022-23, I believe just one more year, is he part of the Celtics' long-term plans, or are we in a situation where we don't really know yet, and we'll have to see what happens next year?
From what I understand, they're very much looking at giving him a contract. So the way it works is he's got his 4-year rookie contract, and next year is the final year of that. But before that, they can do a contract extension, so they can lock that in. So Robert Williams, for example, already has a $50 million contract, but that doesn't start till next year, because he's still in the 4th year of that rookie deal. And that's where Grant will be next year. And they are hoping to lock him into a long-term deal, probably a 4-year deal, probably in the range of what Robert Williams got, $50 million, so between 40 and 50, I'd say. If the Celtics offer that, I'd assume that Grant would take it. I think he's very happy there. I think he's happy with his role there. I don't think he wants to go through restricted free agency. And obviously he's not as good as Robert Williams, but he's also much more durable. Williams, I think part of the thing with his contract was that at the time, especially, he was not able to stay healthy. So, so I could see him getting a deal right in the range of Robert Williams and probably agreeing to that, figure September, October or so, right around the start of the season.
I'm going to kick it to Ethan here, because I'm a Celtics fan, and if I ask what happened last night, it would be profanity laced. So I'm not going to do that. Because when you play a Warriors team that goes cold from the outside and you lose, oh my God. Okay, so Ethan, you ask the same type of question, but do not go profanity laced like I was about to. I've got 4 pair of Celtic shorts in there. I really do.
I will try my best to keep the profanity laced from
Good.
The team that I'm not a fan of. My question would just be how big of a trouble, I guess, do you think the Celtics are in that you got Steph Curry going 0 for 9 and Andrew Wiggins, who was the leading scorer, going 0 for 6 last night? And do you think the Celtics will even be able to push it to 7 and maybe get to that final game?
Yeah, they've been very resilient, and that's been talked about quite a bit. I do wonder if they've gone up against an opponent to where they're out of answers. It really did look like at the end of the game, the third quarter, obviously they played very, very well. But when you got into that fourth quarter and Tatum and Brown were a combined 2 for 9. It just looked like they didn't know where to go. They didn't know what to do at that point. The 18 turnovers is a killer. I mean, you can't, that's been the dividing line, 15 turnovers or less, and they've lost one game in the playoffs. And when you get over 16, that's when 16 or more, that's when things really fall apart for them. And you saw that last night. I mean, they just get so sloppy with the ball. They try to play in traffic, and the Warriors are very, very good. They have very active hands. They're very good at deflecting and interrupting your passing lane. So yeah, I think the Celtics could come back to Boston and win. I don't see them winning a Game 7 though. I think the resiliency that this team has shown, I think the well is dry there. And this is just a better team. That you had Steph Curry shoot the way he did and you weren't able to win. You left that one out there. And I'm not sure Curry's going to do that again. So yeah, I'd say they're in some trouble here.
We haven't quite gotten to Game 6 Clay yet. I guess that's going to be soon. The old Game 6 Clay thing. I feel like the Warriors, scoring wise and just contribution wise, have been kind of varied in who is leading the team each time. Who do you think is the front runner? Given the Warriors win the whole thing, which it's looking like they will, who do you think's the front runner for MVP as of right now?
Oh, it's got to be Steph. I mean, obviously with the bad game, that might ding his chances, but I can't see anybody else on the team getting it. Especially with the way he played in the first 4 games. That he was so good during that stretch. Given the fact that he would never say it, but it certainly seemed. You talk to people around the team. It's important to him. He'd really like to win that, having gone to the finals and Andre Iguodala, remember he won it that first year in 2015 for his defense on LeBron. And then you had Kevin Durant. I think Steph, would like that validation of winning one. So if they try to give it to Klay Thompson or Jordan Poole or something, I were Jordan Poole, I'd say no, give it to Steph. Please give it to Steph. I don't think any of the Warriors would even accept the trophy if they try to give it to someone else.
So back to Draymond Green for a second. He called Grant Williams a clown. How important is it for them to get under Green's skin? Like, what does it do to his game, do you think?
Yeah, I think it was a bozo actually who was a clown.
That's true. In fact, do you remember Bozo the Clown, Sean? Are you old enough to remember that?
Of course I do. Yes, of course I do.
Yes.
I still have nightmares about Bozo the Clown. So.
My mom was on Bozo the Clown show. She won Tootsie Rolls.
Is that wow? She wasn't actually Bozo though, right?
Yes, actual.
Was there actually just one bozo, or were there several bozos that rotated in?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. But Draymond, I think it's more. I think what happens more is that he tries so hard to get under other people's skin that it distracts him from what he should be doing. It distracts him from knocking down shots and playing the defense that he should play. It's part of who he is. And Steve Kerr has said this for 10 years now, that you take the good with the bad with Draymond. You know what he's going to give you. You know that you're going to have to deal with a lot of jabber. And they deal with it in practice. I mean, you ask those guys and they'll tell you that, he gets under your skin in practice. They would rather not have that. Remember of course, the famous confrontation with Kevin Durant that led to Kevin Durant leaving the team eventually. So, he gets under his own player's skin as well. But yeah, I think it's on him. He's the one who does the distracting, and sometimes he distracts himself when he should really be keeping his focus.
All right, Sean. So, like I said, I have 4 pair of Celtic shorts. If they actually, but they were on sale. So, I mean, I went in and got 4 and they look awesome. They're black. And so if the Celtics actually come back and win, I'm going to buy you a pair and send you a pair. So
that's excellent.
I don't know if that would affect your objectivity or not, but
we don't have to tell anybody, Dave. We don't have to tell anybody.
But as far as everybody knows, we're all four sitting here in Boston Celtics shorts.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Sean, take care, buddy. Keep up the great work at heavy.com, and certainly appreciate your time. Best to you and the family.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Nice seeing you, Dave.
Yeah, good seeing you, man. That goes way back. We're talking like 1997. That was the first guy ever scheduled. Oh my gosh. Big Orange Phillies is a great place to watch the game on Thursday. That's a great place to go at any time. They can get you lunch right now if you're listening around the noon hour, and they've got fresh ingredients. But the cool part is they got stuff to do, and it's family friendly. They got darts, billiards, live entertainment, karaoke. I mean, they have it all there at Big Orange Philly. It's on Maynardville Pike, right there in the middle of Halls, and it is just absolutely fantastic. The food is through the roof. Our friend Greg Fowles just absolutely knows how to do it. So certainly find them on Facebook, where you will see an upcoming Vol report with John Adams. All right, so guys, as we talk about Tennessee, a big day. It used to be a big day that players check in, and you do have several players that are checking in or have checked in for the Vols. So that's obviously something that is not covered nearly as much because of the baseball team, because of the way the recruiting calendar has changed. And really, it's just about kind of a roll call, so to speak, because you throw out a roll call and make sure that nobody had academic issues in the past. So here's who's in and who Tennessee can expect to be available this weekend. This season. Defensive back Christian Harris out of Atlanta. Offensive lineman Savion Herring out of New Jersey. Defensive lineman Jason Jenkins from Bordertown, New Jersey. Defensive lineman Joshua Josephs from Kennesaw, Georgia. Wide receiver Brew McCoy. You certainly know him. We talked a lot about Brew, and I think it's just a fantastic get for Tennessee. Defensive lineman James Pierce from Charlotte. Linebacker Caleb Perry from Georgetown. Offensive lineman Messiah Reddick from Detroit. Running back Dylan Sampson from Baton Rouge. Jordan Thomas from Montgomery, Alabama. Defensive back Andre Turrentine from Nashville. And so he checks in as well. Some of these are transfers. And defensive back Wesley Walker is from Nashville as well. So when you look at these groups, guys, the bottom line is Tennessee picks up a handful of transfers. You would think in Walker from Georgia Tech, Turrentine from Ohio State, Jenkins from Notre Dame, that can have a big impact. Amanda, that's something that's changed. It used to be hard to climb the mountain and catch a Georgia or really an Alabama. But with these transfers, I mean, there's no reason that Tennessee can't see a boost, if not this year, but really, really soon.
I mean, I agree. It's a little disheartening, honestly, from an Alabama fan's perspective, because we only have one way to go, and that's down.
That sounds terrible.
Interesting.
I'm sure everyone feels for you there.
Oh, Lord. Anyway, so the NIL has changed the game so much, and the transfer portal. I don't see. I think Ethan made this point a few days ago. Is you can have one, but not both, because it seems it's just a cluster right now. The NCAA has to get a hold on something, because this whole you can bounce wherever you want to go, and I think you can only go to a Division I school one time without penalty sitting out. But still, you can just bounce over. Just, hey, okay, I'm here, and I'm gonna play this year right now. That seems ridiculous to me. I think if you have, as far as the transfer portal goes, if they would make rules and establish, there's a certain amount of things that you should be able to do or transfer, and there's a certain amount of rules that should follow that. You should be able to transfer if if there's sickness in your family or something like that, if it's a family situation. Or I even think you should be able to transfer without penalty if your coach leaves, because you signed up under that coach. If he pieces out, then you should be able to transfer either to where he's going or somewhere else where you can play, because a new coach coming in, you might not fit his scheme. You might not fit, his ideal, and you'll never play. So I feel like there are certain things that you should be able to transfer for. I don't feel like it should be a free-for-all. I think that's ridiculous.
I think the two guys, well, I mean, I see that, but it's kind of a slippery slope. What if the coordinator leaves? What if the position coach leaves? I've wrestled with that before. I'm going to side on the side of the kids most of the time. I think there needs to be a clear window of when they can go and when they can't. So coaches, and there is to some extent, but coaches need to know what they have in the fall. Out of the list, I have trouble not thinking that Brew McCoy, who transfers from Southern Cal, is the player that Tennessee fans are most excited about. But Andre Turrentine also is. I would keep an eye on him from Florida State. Tennessee certainly, Ethan, could use some help in the defensive backfield, and he should be able to come in and compete right away.
Absolutely. I was going to say that. I was thinking about what to say about that, because you got obviously Turrentine, who guy with a lot of time left, I guess, in college, and he has potential, I guess is the word for Turrentine, in a secondary that has been rough the past couple of years. And I've said it before on here. I believe Tennessee has a chance just to kind of start over at secondary. Like, people, I guess, around the fan base, around Tennessee's fan base, are saying that they think it's going to be a real position of weakness. I don't necessarily think so, because you have guys like Turrentine, and another dude I haven't gotten to yet is Wesley Walker, who played really well at nickel for Georgia Tech. And I think he could be a guy that could maybe vie for the role to fill in for Theo Jackson. I know Trayvon Flowers has gotten some run at that in spring practice. And then obviously you got Brandon Turnage, who I think is more of a natural corner, but natural safety, but could also do well in that star spot. So you got three guys vying for that, plus Danico Slaughter, who played some time at star last season. And you got all that, and you say there are a lot of guys, 10, 11 dudes here that are vying for 5 positions in the backfield. Some of them have to be good. I mean, Wesley Walker played well for Georgia Tech. Turrentine, I think in his limited role, played well for Ohio State, and he has potential as a 4-star guy out of high school that could be a really solid piece for Tennessee. Add that to the more solid players in this backfield, such as Trayvon Flowers, who has played well in his career, such as Jalen McCullough, who has played well in his career, and Kamal Hadden, a guy that's coming up, Christian Charles, a guy who I believe will be really good in years to come. He had a very solid freshman campaign, and you got to feel good about it. That's just my look on it, I guess, because I feel like people are quick to say that just because it was a disaster last year and you lose your top 2 guys in Alontae Taylor and Theo Jackson, that it's just going to be a garbage fire. And I'm of the opposite opinion.
Fair. I think it's good for Tennessee. I think the NIL and the way they're handling it. And I think it speaks to the previous coaching staff, bullet head, as I like to call him, because you got a guy like Andre Turrentine who's coming back from Ohio State. Why did he go to Ohio State? Because Tennessee was absolutely a disaster. I mean, he was a number 6 rated player in the state of Tennessee. He was a consensus 4-star prospect. We can go on, and he looks at Tennessee as in-state school and says, "There ain't no way I'm going there. I don't know who this Hopple guy is." Bullet head is gone, but I'm still kind of concerned. I'm not even sure what Bullet Head's doing now, but I think that Tennessee clearly has a huge upgrade when it comes to Josh Heupel. And I say this over and over and over. Nashville is going to be, no question, the next Atlanta, and it's going to have a great population center for recruiting. And I think that guys like Turrentine, and then you got a guy like Brew McCoy coming in from the West Coast. I'm Brew McCoy has the ability to be an all SEC player from the get. Brew McCoy, they brew beer at Zool. Amanda, tell us about Zool downtown, XUL Zool Beer Company.
It's great. It's beautiful. The tap room is unlike any I've ever seen in a brewery, and really just aesthetically pleasing, for lack of a better term. We did win the World Cup, the Beer World Cup gold.
Yes.
In that for Rhymes Like Dimes, which is a hazy IPA, and we beat out over 300 different breweries worldwide, not just nationwide, worldwide, to win that award. We're very proud of that, considering our main brewer, is like 27, 28 years old. I mean, it's insane. Wow. He's insane. He's just very passionate and very like into this whole craft beer thing. It's like his art form. But if you like sours, which I like sours, I'm the only, like, that's my jam. We have really, really, really good sours and seltzers that don't taste like a drop of Splenda in, some soda water.
Nice. Check them out downtown. They got the big panoramic view. You will love Zool Beer hanging out there. You'll love the product and you'll love the atmosphere. And it's just a really, really, really cool place to hang out. So I would certainly suggest that you do that. What do you think are the fair expectations, Ethan, for Brew Zool McCoy? That's his new nickname. Zool Brew McCoy. Zool Brew McCoy Beer Company. I don't know. There's something there. I mean, I don't think I don't know. We'll give it a shot. Maybe he can endorse Zool as part of NIL if he's over 21. I doubt it. That's probably an NCAA rule somewhere, but we'll give it a shot. Yeah,
I'm sure it is.
Let's throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. What are fair expectations? I would say borderline in this offense, borderline all SEC player, definitely a starter. That's my expectation. Where would you put it?
I'd put my expectations at starter. Maybe not as high as you, just because we got to remember he hasn't seen the field in a year and a half. Didn't play last season. He missed a lot of 2019, 20 and those years with an illness, and so he's a guy that's been in college for a while but doesn't have too much experience in college. Now it seems like Tennessee is a great landing spot for him, and he'll probably actually see the field finally, which is good for him, and obviously a major part of the reason he's coming here. But I mean, Cedric Tillman is going to be wide receiver 1. That's obvious. Wide receiver 2 is an unknown right now. We don't know if Jalen Hyatt is going to step up. We don't know if Jimmy Callaway, Ramel Keaton, guys like that are going to step up. So Brew McCoy definitely has his, I guess, opportunity to be able to really be that guy and vie with Tillman to be a real weapon, a guy that Tennessee lost obviously last year in Velus Jones and Javonte Payton. Tennessee's got to find somebody that can step up and fill that role. And McCoy, from his point of view, has to be thinking that's going to be me. He's a guy that's similar to Tillman in that respect, that has that playmaking ability and the size, the frame to be able to be a elite SEC wide receiver. He's just, you got to put it to the field. I mean, everything is there. You just got to go out and do it.
Are we considering transfers recruiting? Show of hands. Well, for those listening on audio, do we want to consider that as part of our recruiting coverage? Because I think we should. It's the same thing. They just happen to be at college. Okay.
Yeah.
It's similar. I would more put transfers as a barometer of how the program is doing. If you've got guys like Wesley Walker and Turrentine saying, I see the problems in that Tennessee defense, I'm going to go try and fix it. They both see that Jackson and Alontae Taylor are leaving. They're going to go try and fix it. Brew McCoy, top 10 prospect a couple years ago. He says, I see what Heupel's doing over there. I see what Hooker's doing over there, potential Heisman candidate. I'm going to go, mess around with them and see how I can ball out with them. So I think it's more of that barometer of how Tennessee is doing. And you got to say Tennessee's on the upswing with it, right?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I think we include JUCO. We've included JUCO players as long as I can remember as recruiting.
Yeah.
So we are making an executive decision right now that transfers are just considered a part of recruiting, which leads us to
Talking Cruton.
Am I right or am I right or am I right?
Who's on Tennessee's board? The names you need to know exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
Talking Cruton today brought to you by our friends at My Phone Will Not Quit Ringing. Talking Cruton today is brought to you by our friends at Vols Automotive. It is car shopping made easy. I know Ethan is on the hunt for something, and our friends at Vols Automotive are on the hunt for that as well. Vols Automotive, their mission is to be the automotive home of drivers in the Knoxville, Tennessee area. They provide a vast selection of used vehicles, exceptional car care, and customer service with a smile. The local dealership keeps a great stock of used cars, trucks, and SUVs in inventory. They've got financing and the whole 9 yards, and they keep you going. They've got a fantastic repair shop for when your car is not performing at its best. So talking Cruton, one other note I wanted to get to after visiting, this is with Go Vols 24/7. After visiting Tennessee a little more than 2 weeks ago, one of the top defensive linemen has scheduled an official visit. Tomarion Parker of Central High School in Phoenix City announced on Sunday night on his Twitter account that he's scheduled to take an official visit to Tennessee the weekend of October the 29th. 6'4", 255 pounds. He's going to attend the Kentucky game, so he'll be cold. That would be the last of his 4 scheduled visits. And for a guy that has covered recruiting for longer than I care to admit, that's a big thing. Being the last visit is pretty significant. He has visits scheduled to Penn State, Michigan State, and Florida. So I feel pretty confident that that Tennessee's in pretty good shape. Maybe you don't want him down here earlier on. I don't know. He's from Alabama. I just wonder why he's coming for the Kentucky game, because it's the Kentucky game. I don't know. I think Tennessee would rather have him for a premier game, but it looks like they just got on the dance card. But Tomarion Parker it would definitely be a key pickup. And, you know, we're getting really close, Ethan, 2 weeks from now. Well, not this weekend, but the next. And we're getting to the point where Tennessee is going to have a monster recruiting weekend, and we'll be all over it at offthehooksports.com and right here on the show. But we will know in about 2 weeks from today just how good Tennessee's class and the rest of the SEC are going to be. I believe we'll have a good feel. What is today? June the 14th, so June the 28th. I believe we'll have a good feel on June the 28th. By the time some of that starts to cycle in, Ethan, where these guys are going. They want to commit early because the early signing day and get it out of the way. And that's what I said that in 2001, and nobody listened to me. But I think Tennessee's rolling along, and I think you got to be happy with where they are in recruiting.
Yeah, obviously Parker's taking a very different approach, visiting in October. But like you said, Carnell Tate is the guy that comes to mind right as you start saying that. And in 2 weeks, we'll likely know where he's going to be going between Tennessee and Ohio State. There's a lot of other guys that are probably going to announce soon. I know Sean Davian Bradley, he's one of the big names. Vic Burley, I'm not sure when he's going to commit, but he's got Tennessee on his big radar. And, the Vols just have a lot of these guys, these top-end talents that they haven't really been fighting for in the past couple of years, especially, I guess, under Pruitt, under Heupel his first year, just because no one knew what Tennessee was. But going back to our last topic, Tennessee's on the upswing. And like you said, I guess it'll be a even better barometer with how these guys actually pick in the coming weeks.
So now we're going to get to our own Amanda. I've known's a great budding broadcaster for quite some time, and she came up with a brand new element that we bring you, and it's brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden.
Talking Cruton.
Am I right or am I right or am I right?
Wait a second. That's not what Amanda came up with.
That's not right.
On or off the hook? Who's to blame?
Unleash the fury!
It has to be someone's fault. On or off the hook? Exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Carl, our board op, better not make that mistake again or he's out. We're not afraid. Carl, I'm talking to you. We're not afraid to throw people off of this show. So
he's an intern. He's an intern.
No, he's highly paid. We only pay at the highest level off the hook sport. So on or off the hook, basically who is on or off the hook for these upcoming topics. So Tennessee's talented pitching duo of Chase Burns and Drew Beam continue to rack up the postseason accolades on Monday. Who is on and off the hook? Congratulations to them, but it takes us back to the loss over the weekend. On and off the hook. Who's on the hook for the loss? Who's off the hook for the loss? I'll start first. I'm going to go on the hook are the umpires. I thought they came out and set a really weird tone that allowed Notre Dame to win on Friday. That got Tennessee a little bit sidetracked. Ethan, who's on the hook for the loss? As you can see, I'm taking Tony Vitello off the hook for not making the pitching change, and you and I disagree on that, but you're in the majority, so if you want to throw Vitello on it, go for it.
I'm not. I even said it last time. I think that was an issue. I think Vitello not doing that was an issue in the game that maybe could have prevented the final score, but that was not the main problem. On the hook for me is just the entirety of Tennessee's offense, Tennessee's bats. You got to show up when it counts. I mean, if you're going to have top offense in the country and what some people are saying one of the best offenses in the history of the game, you got to show up again after chasing their first pitcher pretty soon. You got to show up and you got to, put the bat on the ball and maybe knock it over the park like they did a couple times when it mattered. That's who's on the hook for me. You got to hit the ball.
Amanda, who's on or off the hook for the loss over the weekend that we're going to put to bed as of right now?
I got a couple. So on the hook is going to be Gilbert.
Drew Gilbert.
Very fair.
Yes. His antics, I think, caused a little bit of a problem with the umps. And also Peyton Manning. Stop going.
You went there.
I did.
You went there.
Tennessee games, Peyton. Stop it.
I can't believe you went there.
I think this is a fantastic take. I 100% agree with this.
I went there. I mean, I'm good with him going to Tennessee games. Please go. There's a game in October. Pretty important one. Go to that one. Peyton. Yeah, but as far as Tennessee fans are concerned, I think that they're going to put him on the hook. It's a curse. It's a curse.
Well, it's pretty unbelievable. Tennessee has to be 2-147 when Peyton Manning is in attendance.
Yeah,
it just seems like it.
Yeah, but
it's obviously silly. I get it, but at some point you gotta be a little superstitious because it's getting pretty ridiculous. I'd say.
I mean, he's the second best quarterback in the history of the game of football, and I could argue he's better than Tom Brady. Okay, and there's
absolutely not.
Well, okay, I could go there because I think he changed the game as far as calling things at the line, which came from David Cutcliffe, and having flex plays, so you have two plays and you can go to either one, and he calls it at the line. Omaha. Yeah, that's exactly what that was. That was a signal. And it was funny because, I read what Omaha actually meant. It meant keep the same play. So instead of flipping, it just meant do what you're supposed to do. But so I have seen where social media has gone there. I have seen that a lot, but I think you have to embrace Peyton Manning. He is, he's an all-time great. He changed the course of it. Amanda feels like there's a curse. You really believe there's a curse when he shows up. So if he shows up to a crew event,
the boat's sinking.
I think it specifically has to be Tennessee athletics. I'll diverge from that a little bit.
Well, they have a crew team. They have a rowing team. So.
Oh, okay. That's what. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. By the way, nobody covers crew like offthehooksports.com. Nobody. Check out my friend David Vassy at Vassy Lawn and Garden. Vassy Lawn and Garden is in Cleveland, Tennessee. It's open 6 days a week, year-round. EETC certified technicians. It is awesome whether you need service or you need that new zero-turn mower from Toro. They got the steering wheel, so you don't have to work with the handles. Got trimmers, blowers, edgers, everything Vassy Lawn and Garden. And David Vassy one heck of an individual. So that is certainly some place you need to stop in. All right, so when we talk about people checking in, when we talk about the loss over baseball, which we're putting to bed, I see repeated posts that say, yeah, it's time for football season. It's time for football season. What did we learn? Let me start with you, Amanda, from this season, because I had a great time. The brief time that we were launched covering this team, I enjoyed it. But in the end, would Tennessee rather have a 5-star quarterback committed or win a national championship in baseball?
Honestly, I think you want to win the national championship in baseball. I mean, I know football's a big deal. I get it, but the competition, it's yes, I know. Clearly, I know. But I think that if you have a chance to win a national title, as long as it's not in crew, I think that's what you pick. You pick that. As long as you're not underwater basket weaving or something of that nature. Baseball is a pretty big sport. I mean, it is. And they brought a lot of eyes to the game this year. So I think you would want to win and you want to go out on top. I know a 5-star recruit is a big deal, especially at quarterback. But again, you don't know how they're going to play out. So they could be a complete flop and you have no idea. That's a chance. Whereas a national title is a definite.
I want to remind you that if you're having any sort of heat and air issues, that City Heating and Air Conditioning is who you need to get in touch with, like immediately if you're having some sort of issue. And they're going to fix it right. They're not going to make you promises that they're going to come over for $25 and take care of it. They're going to do it right, because the last thing you want, and we've all been there when the HVAC goes out, the last thing you want is to have somebody come out and fix it, and it works for a couple of days. This has happened to me, and then it breaks again, and you're hot again, and you have to reschedule another one. That's not what you want. That doesn't happen with City Heating and Air Conditioning. Go to cityheatandair.com. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Coming up on offthehooksports.com, we are going to have an interview that we do, the Vol Report, with Jacob Warren. We will also have a story of this is super cool. I think Ethan's working on a story of the strongest Vol in the weight room now, the strongest small Vol, a defensive back / skill position player. So he's going to turn that out for you today, and also continuing the top 25. Ethan, tease it. Top 25 countdown. So where are we and who's coming up now?
Yeah, as of right now, we're going to be at number 21, and I'm not telling you who it is. You're going to have to see who it is. We had actually, wait. Yeah, I think it's 21. We might even be at 22 right now. I'm not sure. We've been really hammering out the defensive backs. Kamal Haddon, Christian Charles, Princeton Fant was at 23. I believe we are now at 22. You are not going to know who it is, though. Maybe 21. I don't know. We'll see. I'm drawing a blank at the moment, but it'll be good content regardless.
Good stuff. So we'll have that countdown that will continue, and we're going to amp up the recruiting coverage too, now that Tennessee baseball is over. And Amanda is actually TikToking away, and she is a TikTok magician. So for those of you that are out there on the TikTok, check it out. Do you like when I start every social media with the? You're on the Twitter, you're on the Facebook. Does that make me sound old?
It makes you sound young, like so young that you're not even aware of what's going on social media. You're just too young for it. You know what I mean?
Too young. Yeah. Got a fake hip that would speak otherwise. Have a fantastic day, everyone. We will talk to you on Wednesday. This has been Off the Hook with me, Dave Hooker, Amanda LaFrada, and Ethan Stone, a production of Off the Hook Sports.